You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along. Today's show presented by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. On today's show, John Nabors of Locked On Razorbacks is going to join us to talk about the monster matchup this weekend between Steve Sarkisian and Texas, coming to Fayetteville to take on the Hogs. We'll preview it all. Also, we'll talk some SEC with our buddy Lyn Scarbrough from Lindy Sports. I am Chris Gordy. Be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On SEC for free wherever you get your podcasts. You get the latest episode of this show as soon as it comes out each and every day. All right, let's jump right into it.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we are not wasting any time today. We're going to jump right into it with our buddy John Nabors, host of Locked On Razorbacks. And John, how is everybody feeling in the state of Arkansas with this monster matchup coming this Saturday?
Man, I think the excitement level is, needless to say, pretty high. I mean, I feel like if most people's nipples were any harder, their clothes would explode out of excitement. Like, it is, it's next level. Like, everyone knows how bad Arkansas has been in football for the past few years, and they really haven't had any games to get up for, to get hyped for, or at least games that they felt like they had a puncher's chance in winning too. Like when Bama comes to town, it's always a big deal, but like you never are going to beat Bama. But with Texas coming into town, an old Southwest Conference rival early in the season in Fayetteville, 6 p.m., ESPN, Joe Tess on the call. I mean, you can't ask for anything better than that. And Arkansas fans have been wanting a game like this for a very, very long time.
All right, before we look ahead, John, let's look back a little bit because I had the tablet going. I had, the multiple TVs, but on my tablet, I had Arkansas Rice, and I couldn't turn it off because I was like, what the hell is happening with Arkansas? Why are they losing to Rice? What were your big takeaways from this game last week?
I mean, it was a tale of two halves, obviously. I mean, Arkansas ended up winning, and not only winning, but covering the spread, which we know is very important in the game of football. But what it looked like to me in the first half is, we talked about it on my podcast and on the radio show and everything, and just a matter of, okay, when that first half was going on, a lot of Razorback fans had a little bit of PTSD saying, oh no, is this the Chad Morris type stuff where you're going into a game heavily favored, supposed to win, and you crap the bed. And then not only do you crap the bed, but you get blown out, and it just had that feel again. But I think myself and a lot of other Razorback fans were kind of saying, all right, let's see what this team can do in the second half. You're down at halftime at home against an inferior opponent. What do you do in the second half? And I think previous teams would have just rolled over and died, but not a Sam Pittman team. And they came back, outscored Rice in the second half 31-7, which is exactly what you would have expected in the first half. But they got KJ Jefferson going, who struggled a lot in the first half. Could not get his throws. I mean, just routine throws could not get him going. The offense was just out of sync, it looked like. I think nervousness got to a lot of these guys, and especially to KJ. The defense performed really well. Luckily, that's really what kept Arkansas in the game. But you had special teams gaps, had a blocked punt. The first half just didn't look good. They looked like a team that had been just kind of shell-shocked a little bit as far as going out in front of a crowd and getting ready for a game. But once they settled down, once they made their adjustments, they looked like the Razorback football team you were hoping to see. So after seeing the second half performance and how much better they played, especially with KJ Jefferson, the confidence level is still pretty high because, hey, when you hit adversity, previous teams would have rolled over and died. But this Sam Pittman team, after they hit adversity, they overcome it, they fix it, and they end up being victorious because of it.
I want to touch a little bit on KJ because, it was interesting. I had a lot of confidence in him this offseason. And, I know Sam Pittman talked after the game saying, look, I've got his back. He's going to be all right. The running ability was there. I mean, he rushes for almost 100 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. That first one looks like, man, all right, he's injected something into this offense. They're ready to go. Why were they not successful throwing the ball? And when you got a guy like Treylon Burks, who's so good at catching the ball, why couldn't they get him involved?
Well, they tried to get him involved, but the problem was Treylon Burks had 2 drops in the first half, which is unheard of. But, not to make excuses, But Treylon Burks has also not been practicing very much at all because he's been dealing with injury. So I think that once he got into the game, that was kind of a problem too, is he just hadn't been practicing and been in the routine. And so he had some drops early. And I think with KJ, he had one pass that he had Tyson Morris wide open, like a very routine pass, but he just airmailed it. And Sam Pittman said in his press conference afterwards, he's like, I've seen him make that throw every single time in practice, like every time. And so he said, like Sam Pittman even chalked it up to nerves. He's like, I just think that KJ came out there when it was his team. He was the starter, all eyes on him. I think he let it get to him a little bit. And so I think that just not being able to be on the same page in the passing game, and then give Rice credit, because Rice came in with a good game plan too, and did some things against Arkansas to try to mess with them a little bit. And when you couldn't get the passing game going, you had to rely on your rushing game, which Arkansas's rushing game was fine, but at some point in time, you got to be able to pass the ball, obviously. And Arkansas just didn't do the routine throws. KJ could not make the routine throws, and that's where they struggled. Is if you can run it all day, but at some point in time, you got to convert the pass, and they just couldn't do it.
Touch a little bit on the run game. I mean, I know KJ Jefferson, like we said, rushed for 89 yards, but Treylon Smith over 100 yards on the ground, a rushing touchdown. Did you see everything you wanted to see out of the run game, even if the pass game wasn't what we wanted it to be?
I think so. Treylon Smith, you know how good he is. I mean, he got over 100 yards rushing. He's a scat back. He's got some speed. He's able to kind of slip through those holes really easily. He's really good. And I think that everyone kind of knew that. The question was going to be, besides Treylon Smith, who is going to be the other guy to step up? Because, KJ can run, that Treylon Smith can run, but they're still going to need another running back to be that guy. And we have been hearing about Raheem Rocket Sanders out of practice, a guy that's a true freshman. And if you have a nickname like Rocket, that means you must be pretty good. And Sam Pittman's been raving about him during fall camp too. And when people saw him out there, they're like, okay, we see what everyone else sees. I mean, he didn't have a huge game. He's not like he broke off a run of 50 yards or anything like that. But just watching him, you can tell him like this guy has an ability to, if he gets loose, he'll break away. And he's very strong. He's very athletic. He's 6'1", 235 pounds. I mean, and he can run a 4.4. He's really athletic, really talented. I will say it's kind of weird, though, seeing those old school uniforms with Arkansas and seeing number 5 in the running back position. Right. Like it's almost like no one's going to try to make the comparisons to Darren McFadden, but still there's an element to that. So I think that he's a guy that I'd even predicted is going to be SEC all freshman by the end of the season, because he seems to have all the attributes you want from a great SEC running back.
Real quick, before we turn the page ahead to week 2, I did want to let our listeners hear a little bit of what Sam Pittman said after the game regarding KJ Jefferson.
I want to say this, I think KJ probably took a lot of heat this week, and everybody got their opinion, but the one that really matters is mine, and he's our quarterback, and he's going to be a heck of a quarterback for us, and you can't erase what's happened. You can't erase it. We didn't have a good first half. But you also probably need to talk about that the kid played well in the second half too, and he corrected it.
Is that just the epitome of Sam Pittman? I mean, the guy's so likable, but man, he's got his players back, and he makes that known.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing is Sam Pittman is a likable guy, and he makes jokes. He's just a simple guy, just having a good old time. And some people may look at that as like a concern because they don't like their coaches to be just so like matter of fact and direct and detailed and all that. Some people may even see it as a weakness. But the thing about Sam Pittman is that he's obviously a very nice guy, but he also knows what he wants. He knows what he wants in a football team and in a football program. And he's not going to waver from that. He could, I think other coaches or, maybe previous Arkansas coaches, if they would have saw the start that KJ Jefferson had, may have pulled him and said, all right, this isn't working. Let's try something else. But Sam Pittman knows what KJ Jefferson can do. He trusts Kendall Briles, the offensive coordinator, to know who's the best guy to put in that position. And he's loyal to that fact. He's like, I know what I want it to look like. He's still our guy. I'm still riding with him because I know what he's capable of. So I think the idea that he has his players' backs, but he's loyal to him because he's like, I see it in practice. He's not just making it up because, oh, well, I really like the kid because he's a nice kid. No, it's like, I've seen this guy. I know what he's capable of. So I'm going to roll with him until otherwise. I think that's a big aspect and a big attribute of Sam Pittman, and why the players, and every player, even in previous years when he was an offensive line coach, love the guy and play really hard for him, is because it's like, hey, I know what you can do. I'm going to have your back. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have problems or whatnot. But because I know how good you can be, I'm still going to have your back.
More with John Nabors right after this. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it is impossible for your local auto parts chain store to stock up on everything you need. And let's be honest, half the time when you go into these stores, you ask for a part, they're going to type it in on their computer, and most of the time, they're going to have to order the part for you. They don't even have it in stock. Just go to rockauto.com. You can save time and money. Why would you choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% sometimes at some of these car dealerships where they want to take advantage of you? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Their prices are always reliably low for every customer, and they got everything you need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, whatever it is. Go explore their easy-to-use website today. Find the solution for your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Make sure you write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know that we sent you. An amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com. Continue our conversation with John Nabors, getting you guys ready for the big game against Texas, Arkansas, and Texas. The future SEC Longhorns coming to Fayetteville this weekend. And John, we reviewed last week's game. Now we turn the page and look ahead to this matchup. And first things first, I saw a couple days ago that this game is a sellout. Sounds like everybody in the state is absolutely hyped up and excited for this one. Will not be an empty seat in the house. I assume Fayetteville's back to 100% tailgating, and it's going to be a real game day atmosphere for the first time in about 2 years.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, you have SEC Nation coming as well. They're going to be heading over to, I don't know exactly which location they'll be at on campus, but they're coming, which is going to be another element into it all. I think that since it's a sellout, because here's the thing that people may not realize. Arkansas expanded and renovated Razorback Stadium back in 2017. And to expand it to 80,000 people would be the capacity. Well, since 2017, Arkansas hasn't really been able to fill the stadium for multiple reasons, but mainly it's because they've sucked. So last year, you probably had some opportunities to maybe fill the stadium, but because of COVID, you couldn't. So since Arkansas expanded in 2017, that north end zone has not been filled ever, or at least has not been close to being filled. This is the first time that you'll actually be able to see Razorback Stadium under the new renovation filled. It's going to break the attendance record because of, I think it was previously 76,000 back in 2010 against Bama. So it's going to break the attendance record. The tickets right now, I have buddies of mine that sold upper deck tickets for $200 a piece, which is a ton of money for an Arkansas Razorback football game. Tailgating's back. Me and my crew is going to be tailgating out there right outside the stadium to be a part of it as well. It's back, and it's everyone has been talking about this game, looking forward to this game since 2009 when this game got put on the schedule because they had to move some stuff with Texas A&M. So everyone's had and the fact that September 11th, the 20th anniversary of that, another emotional moment for this game. You could not write a more perfect script to going into a college football game, at least from the Arkansas perspective. Now it's just about getting the win. That's going to be the next big thing. But everything else around this game and surrounding it, like I said, it doesn't get any better than this.
Let's talk a little bit about, game plan for this game. Defensively, we know Arkansas has got a lot of seasoned pieces, but man, last week, Grant Morgan gets ejected early before he can even get started. We know that guy's a tackling machine. He has one tackle on the year. He's looking to make an impact, but Bumper Poole, who's your leading tackler from last week, gets ejected in the second half. That means he's going to miss the first half of this game. I think that's just a big loss when you talk about Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas. They want to get him going. Hudson Card, the freshman quarterback, looked pretty good last week in the second half against Louisiana. So losing a key defensive piece for the first half may hurt them, but it'll be good they get Grant Morgan back for an entire game.
Yeah, and I know that everyone's been talking about the targeting rules and the punishment. It's like, I hate it. I hate the punishment for this rule. It's just, I can understand that if someone had ill intent of like trying to take someone's head off, you eject them. I get that. But at the same time, in the cases of Grant Morgan and Bumper Pool, were they targeting by the letter of the law? Yes, they were. It was targeting, but it wasn't malicious. So like, it wasn't like they were aiming for that way. It was just such a bang, bang play. And fun fact, people may not realize this either. Hayden Henry, the other linebacker for Arkansas, he had to sit out the first half against Rice because of last season against Alabama when he got ejected in the second half. So he had to serve his suspension for the next half of the first half of the next season. Like, it's asinine. And I tweeted this out. I'm like, there's a problem fundamentally with the rule where a football player can go up to another opposing football player and like stone cold stun them and get the same punishment that they could for targeting. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So I know that we've all complained about it in this rule and the punishment and everything, but it's big because, listen, Arkansas, they're a better team. I think they're a deeper team this year, but they're still not a good enough team to go without their stars. And Bumper Pool is a star. Bumper Pool is arguably one of the top 5 players on the defense. He's a senior. He's experienced. He's been around the block a long time. And he was not too happy with the call. He even took to Twitter to be very subtle in his unhappiness, but still he's very unhappy with the call. So that's a big factor, though. You just, at that point in time, you're just hoping that whether it's Hayden Henry or some other linebacker will be able to just kind of hold down the fort until Bumper Pool can come back in the second half.
What's going to be the key for this secondary? I know they were very active this past week with, getting their hands on footballs. Jalen Catalon with 2 interceptions. Monteric Brown got 1. We know how good they can be. I mean, they were among the SEC leaders in interceptions last year. What's going to be the key with the secondary this week?
The key for them is just to keep doing what they're doing and what they did last year. And you mentioned it, is just getting picks, getting interceptions. I mean, they are so good at finding the ball on tip balls. They're good on breaking the ball. Like, I will make this argument, which may not be saying much because if you follow Razorback football, it's not saying much, but this is the best secondary Arkansas has had probably in 15 or 20 years. And I mean that. And I know that it's all mainly because of Jalen Catalon and how he's an all-American caliber player. But it's not just him. You got other solid players in the secondary. Now, Ladarius Bishop, he struggled a little bit this past week. He fumbled on the kickoff. He was a kick returner. He got burned on a play. So he had a couple struggles. But Joe Fouché, Busta Brown, as you mentioned, and Jalen Catalon, guys like that, I mean, they're legit defenders. And they have been well coached by Barry Odom in this defense to go and get interceptions. And because Jalen Catalon had a bunch of interceptions last year. And they just are really good at finding the ball, looking for the ball, not letting anything get behind them. They've done a good job last year, and they're going to do even better this year. So I think that if they can just take advantage of those tip balls, or at least not let anything go downfield, get a couple of picks, which I think is very possible because, nothing against Hudson Card. I think he's a fine quarterback, but I think it's a little different facing Louisiana defensive backs than it will be from Arkansas defensive backs. I think if they can just cause some turnovers, cause some problems, not let anything get downfield, and even if one of the receivers does catch the ball, not let them get anywhere after the catch, they're going to cause some problems for Texas.
Key to a victory, does it start with slowing down Bijan Robinson, the dynamic running back for UT?
I think so. I think it's just because, listen, Steve Sarkisian's one of the best offensive minds in the country. I mean, he's got the experience to go along with it. He's coached championship teams, obviously at USC and Alabama and all that. Like, the guy knows offense, and he knows how to be successful at offense. It's going to be, if Arkansas can just control them, get them in situations in 3rd and long, keep them from getting the run game going, because you mentioned Bijan Robinson. The guy's really good, and everyone knows he's really good, and Arkansas knows he's really good. If they can put him in his place and try to make Hudson Card throw the ball a lot more than what they want to, I feel like that may be the key to this game, because Arkansas's rush defense is good, but their pass defense is better. So get Texas into passing situations, force them to throw the ball a lot more. I think that could get Hudson Card into a position where he makes a little more mistakes. Also got to get pressure on Hudson Card. Like Arkansas in the first half against Rice did not get pressure on the quarterback. Second half they did. That's when those interceptions started getting thrown. So get him in a position where you put some pressure on him. But Bijan Robinson, if you slow him down, I think that Arkansas's defense is going to be able to take advantage of it.
Last thing, predictions. Is Arkansas 2-0 after this Saturday?
I think so. I'm always the optimistic. I think like I'm Sam Pittman. Me and him are most optimistic people there is. But I am optimistic though, because I just feel like Arkansas's experience, it's just theirs defensively, especially. They got guys all over the field that has so much experience that it goes a long way. I think KJ finally settled in that second half, and I think that he's going to be a lot more settled in this game. And Traylon Burks is going to be fully healthy, ready to go. I think that you figured some things out against Rice, and once you get into that game, it'll be different. Special teams is going to be a big factor. I know we don't talk about it, but Arkansas special teams has been pretty bad. Like they can't have block punts. Like they just can't do those things. So if they shore up some of the mistakes that they made against Rice, especially in the first half, I think Arkansas wins this game, especially in that atmosphere, especially with that crowd noise going to be bringing it. I say I haven't done a final prediction, but I feel like Arkansas will win this one by a touchdown or less. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a one-possession game, but I think Arkansas ekes it out. I think they take the victory, and I think they move on 2-0.
Our buddies at BetOnline.ag, they got Arkansas as a 6.5-point underdog, plus 210 on the money line. So if you take John's advice, go jump on Arkansas plus 210 at BetOnline, and you make a little money this weekend. We'll see. John, thanks so much for the time, man, and best of luck to your Razorbacks this weekend.
All right, appreciate it, man. Hogs by 90.
There we go. John Nabors of Locked On Razorbacks. Appreciate him for joining us here. We'll talk with Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports coming up next. Want to remind you guys about our friends over at SweatBlock. Look, we tell you guys all the time, it's an uncomfortable conversation. You sweat through your shirts, whether it's on a date, whether it's out tailgating, whether it's going to the football game. I tell you guys all the time, I always have to bring a change of shirt when I know I'm going to be out in the heat all day tailgating and then going and sitting in the stadium. You get sticky, you get gross, you start pitting, as we call it. SweatBlock can help you take care of that. They created wipes that are stronger and more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. You simply apply it at night before bedtime. You go to bed. The next morning you wake up, you take a shower, you go about your day without worrying about sweat. It is guaranteed. It's doctor-created, doctor-recommended. They give you the dry shirt guarantee. If SweatBlock doesn't keep you dry, you get your money back. Featured and tested on the Rachel Ray Show by firefighters. It's been a bestseller on Amazon for the past 10 years, over 13,000 reviews. If you or someone you know is dealing with this, you have to go check out SweatBlock. You can get them today for 20% off at sweatblock.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON. You can also find them on Amazon and CVS, but sweatblock.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. Get 20% off. Try them today. It is that time of year, guys, where we're shifting our attention to football. Thank God it's finally here. We got the NFL starting up tonight. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all pro and college football action this season. You get all the latest updated odds, props, and contests. They got tons of different promotions going on right now. Of course, if you're a first-time customer, you head over to their website, use your mobile device. You can sign up today, receive a 100% welcome bonus when you use our promo code LOCKEDON. It's LOCKEDON. Be sure to take advantage of all their opening day super promos and everything they got, from football to boxing to basketball, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. They got it all for you right at BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to bet on all your favorite sports. Head there right now, betonline.ag. BetOnline, they are your online sportsbook experts. Rolling along here, Locked On SEC, and our thanks to John Nabors joining us there in the last segment, previewing Arkansas and Texas. Big game coming up this weekend. Next up on our guest list today, one of our favorite guests, been writing for Lindy Sports for a long time, Lyn Scarbrough joining us now. He's going to join us just about every week of the college football season, give his thoughts on the SEC. And Lyn, I know the latest college football rankings came out today, or yesterday rather, 3 of the top 5 teams in the SEC. That's pretty solid, wouldn't you say? I mean, just from a standpoint of having 3 of the best 5 teams in the country.
Yeah, that's tough to beat, isn't it? When you're going up against that kind of competition, you can be a pretty good team and and still not have a fantastic record at the end of the year when you got to play with, particularly the guys in the West. The teams in the West, look mighty strong. I know LSU had a rough time against UCLA, and they're a unique situation sort of. And I know Chris had to suffer through watching that ball game. But I picked UCLA on my picks. I did pretty well. I got UCLA on my picks, and I picked Penn State as my upset of the week. So that's one of the few times that I would have actually, if I'd bet on games, I'd have done okay on those two. But yeah, I mean, when you got through at the top five, it's hard to find a problem.
Well, the Ole Miss game the other night was filled with targeting and ejections, and it's getting pretty silly to me with all these new rules. What do you make of the targeting rules and penalties and all that kind of stuff?
The problem with it is that it's all left up to opinion, and it used to be where there was somebody's intent. How can you read people's minds and know where their intent are? It's a tough thing, and I mean the emphasis on safety is good. I've worked some and written some stories about what they're doing about the concussions and that type of thing. Of course, and you played, so you know that well. But it comes to a point you got to let guys play, and obviously you've had people that were paralyzed and killed in this type of thing. But I mean, that happens in all aspects of life, really, I guess. But it's the arbitrary part of it is what's bad, because you can have an official see one particular thing and call it, and you could have another one see exactly the same thing and not call it. And then, of course, you've got these reviews. All of them are under review, which slows down the game, stops the momentum of the game. But I mean, if you're going to protect the guys, I guess you got to have it. But some of them are questionable.
Talking with Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports. And Lyn, one of the big games coming up this weekend is top 25 Texas traveling to Fayetteville to take on Arkansas. In your mind, does Arkansas have a chance at the upset in this one?
Yeah, Arkansas could win. Arkansas has got some really good skill players. They don't have the talented depth that some of the other teams in the SEC West do, but they've got some game breaker type players. Traylon Burks is just outstanding. We actually have him, we got him as the top wide receiver really in the conference, and he's very good. I've covered a number of their games and seen their skill players. Texas, if you took a player by player by player rankings and all, Texas is probably a better team, but that doesn't always win. As I don't know if y'all read my column yet this week, but it was this week had more upsets of a great magnitude than I ever remember. There were 8 or 9 games that I actually featured in the column. There were situations where a group of 5 teams lost to Power 5 or to FCS, where Power 5 teams lost to FCS. I don't know what's the reason for this. It's, I had somebody call me and say, I read your column, what's the reason? And, and I don't know. You can say a lot of things. You can say that little by little, the scholarship equalization continues to come up. There are situations, if you look at a lot of these upsets, y'all, that I had in there, a lot of them were led by transfer portal players that last year were playing for somebody else, or year before last were playing for somebody else. And you've got, and you have the teams like Liberty. Liberty, they have a program 30 years ago, but it wasn't at this level. And all of a sudden, Liberty comes out of nowhere, loses one game last year by 1 point to North Carolina State. Well, they're led by Malik Willis. Malik Willis could have been Auburn's quarterback. And Auburn knew he was that good. They knew he wasn't going to be out Bo Nix, but they wanted him to still play, and we're going to use him in a hybrid type position and let him still be the offense. He wanted to be a quarterback, and you see why in the way that he's done. You got a lot of teams, and we've talked about it, on and off the air. Chris and I talked about it at SEC Media Days. The transfer portal is making a gigantic difference in football and in basketball.
Sure.
When we talk about basketball, it's going to be, you can have 3 transfers on football, and you've got, 1/6 or 7th of your team. You got 3 transfers in basketball, 60% of your team's changed. And so I really think this transfer portal thing is a major factor in what college football and basketball is going to be going forward.
Talking with Lyn Scarbrough. Lyn, a quick thought on Texas A&M. They look good this past week, running the ball well like we knew they would. A nice early test for their new quarterback, Haynes King. Threw some picks last week against Kent State, but made some really good plays. But a good early road test to go up to Denver at Mile High to take on Colorado.
It will be. It's one of those where you could have an upset. It'd be two Power 5 teams, so it wouldn't fall into the same category as what I think we had this past week. Texas A&M is better than Colorado. I mean, they've got better players overall. They've recruited better. But Colorado's not a bad program. And it's, and they'll have the home field advantage for whatever that's worth. I don't know how much the higher altitude affects anything. I like Texas A&M to win the game because they're the best team. But as we saw this past weekend, the team that looks like the best team doesn't always win. And I think A&M needs to be looking over the shoulder because Colorado could beat them, but I don't think it will.
Well, the team that looked like the best team was the Alabama Crimson Tide. I mean, they look like everything they lost. They look like the best team in the country once again. Just the landscape of the SEC, what we saw this past weekend, Lyn, are we looking at another year in the SEC where it's just everybody chasing Alabama again?
Well, it could be. Georgia looked mighty good. So I'm not conceding that yet. When you hear my show this afternoon, or whenever we get it recorded, since we're actually recording the next Lindy football report later this afternoon. Unless I change my mind, I'm going to pick, I pick an upset of the week every week. Last week it was Penn State over Wisconsin. Unless I change my mind in about the next 4 hours, I'm going to pick Appalachian State to beat Miami. Appalachian State plays them at Miami. Miami's going to be coming down after putting so much into playing Alabama. And the team that got all this stuff started was back when Appalachian State was a FCS team and went up and beat Michigan. I refer to that in the column. And Appalachian State's a good team. They beat East Carolina by double digits last week. East Carolina's an American Athletic Conference team, and they like to brag that they're the sixth best league, the Power Six, they like to say. And they had two 100-yard rushers in the game. Appalachian State got almost 500 yards total offense. So this was not a fluky deal. And and I don't mean it to cut down Alabama. Alabama's mighty good, but we had Miami ranked as number 14 to 15 team, and that's what you went on. And thinking Alabama's beating a great nationally ranked team. Well, I don't know if I looked in one of the polls. Washington was in the top 20 last week. They didn't get a single vote. It is AP or coaches. They didn't get one vote after being in the top 20 last week. Are they really as good as we thought? Is North Carolina as good as we thought? Losing to Virginia Tech. We'll see. If Miami just steamrolls Appalachian State, then Alabama really did something by beating them. But let's see how good Miami is. Not to take away from Alabama right now. I think they're the best team in the country. But I don't know. You may have the two best teams in Georgia and Alabama, and then you got Texas A&M right behind them. A&M plays Alabama and gets Alabama out there. The team that's looking at that, is Auburn that I cover. You got number 1, number 2, and number 5 are SEC teams, and Auburn may be the only team that plays every one of them. So you want a team that can control its own destiny. Auburn go beat Penn State in 2 weeks, and then you got it laid out in front of you because you got 3 out of the top 5. But when you're in the SEC, Florida. What are they not number 12? Ole Miss looked good. I thought their defense looked better, and that's been their problem. And you mentioned Kentucky and Missouri. This is a big test for both of those teams because I thought both of them looked good in their first ball game. Missouri not quite as good because Central Michigan gave them a pretty good ball game, but Kentucky looked outstanding. And whichever one of those teams wins could be a dark horse in the Eastern Division. And, Guy, I know we're probably running out of time, but the best story in college football this past week was Zeb Noland.
Yeah.
Y'all know about him?
Oh, yeah. The grad assistant turned starting quarterback for the South Carolina Gamecocks.
Yeah. Three weeks ago, he's on their coaching staff, and now he's led them to a 40-something to nothing win. I mean, that's one of the best human interest stories in college football in a good while.
Lyn Scarbrough of Lindy Sports. Lyn, always good to catch up, man. Good to talk with you. We'll do it again next week, all right?
All right, guys. Talk to y'all soon.
All right, Lyn Scarbrough there of Lindy Sports. Always good to talk all things SEC football with him. That is just about going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. My thanks to John Nabors. My thanks to Lyn Scarbrough. We'll be back tomorrow for a Friday edition, getting you guys ready for the weekend, looking ahead to all the Week 2 games across the SEC. I am Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC. And a quick reminder, check out our friends over at Locked On Bets, wherever you get your podcast. Betting on the SEC's never been easier with your boy Q and Lee Sterling. Get Lee's lock of the day right there, Locked On Bets. I'm Chris Gordy. Talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.